In this section, we will look at the mechanics of representational systems, how and why people generally have a preferred system, how to determine a person's preferred system by looking at eye-accessing cues, and identifying the finer distinctions of the sensory modalities known as submodalities. Representational systems are sometimes known as sensory modalities. In earlier sections, we examined how the human mind both takes in information and then processes the information after the filters of deletion, distortion, and generalization have taken effect. Consider that within your mind, you might talk to yourself, visualize or dream something in pictures, or even have feelings and emotions related to a specific event. Clearly, there are 5 possible sensory modalities associated with our 5 senses. In NLP, these are known as VAKOG. Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic are the primary representational systems used in Western cultures. We use all 3 of the primary systems all of the time, although we are not equally aware of them all, and we tend to favor some over others. For example, many people have an inner voice that runs in the auditory system, creating an internal dialogue. They rehearse arguments, rehear speeches, make up replies, and generally talk things over with themselves. Representational systems are not mutually exclusive. It is possible to visualize a scene, have the associated feelings, and hear the sounds simultaneously. Although it may be difficult to pay attention to all 3 at the same time, some parts of the thought processes will be unconscious. Our behavior is generated from a mixture of internal and external sense experiences. At any time, we will be paying attention to different parts of our experience. While you listen to this presentation, you will be focusing on the slide and the words you hear, and probably not be aware of the feeling in your left foot, unless it starts to fall asleep and demands the attention of your conscious mind. Originally, it was asserted that individuals preferred one representational system over another. This idea led to the classification of individuals as visual, auditory, or kinesthetic thinkers. This concept was widely used in the development of educational theories in the late 1970s on different learning styles. Later research established a more subtle distinction in the difference between the process of taking in information and of internally processing and coding information. For internal processes, individuals have been found to use all representation systems to varying degrees, and no single sense preferences are observed. The processes are used dependent on the situation, and the individual's specific mental processes or strategies in use moment to moment. The concept of preferred representation still exists and is not related exclusively to the process of taking in data. Thus, individuals are still considered to have a preferred representational system for receiving information, however, not for thinking or analyzing information internally. A further distinction is made in the internal process representations for visual and auditory, in that these representations can be both constructed or remembered. For example, you may visually remember the picture of someone's face in your mind and remember the sound of the words you heard them saying. Thus, the representation is visually remembered and auditory remembered. Equally, you may build up a picture of something in your mind and imagine what something looks like and sounds like before you've ever seen it or experienced. Thus, the representation is visually constructed and auditory constructed. One way of identifying a person's preferred representational system is by the words they use. We use words to describe our thoughts, so our choice of words will indicate which representational system we are using. Considering 3 people who have just read the same book, the first might point out that he saw a lot in it, the examples were well chosen to illustrate the subject, and it was written in a sparkling style. The second might object to the tone of the book. It had a shrill pose style. In fact, he cannot tune in to the author's ideas at all, and he would like to tell him so. The third feels the book dealt with a weighty subject in a balanced way. He liked the way the author touched on all the topics, and he grasped the new ideas easily. You will notice that each person expressed themselves about the book in a different way. One was thinking in pictures, the second in sounds, and the third in feelings. These sensory-based words are called predicates. You may like to become aware over the next coming weeks what sorts of words you favor in normal conversation. It is also fascinating to listen to others and discover what sort of sensory-based language they prefer. The richness and range of our thoughts depends on our ability to link and move from one way of thinking to another. For example, if my preferred system is auditory but followed by visual, I will tend to remember a person through the sound of their voice and then think about them in pictures. So we take information in from one sense, but represent it internally with another. Sounds, for instance, can conjure up visual memories and vice versa. This immediate and unconscious link across the senses is called synesthesia. It is easy to know if a person is thinking in pictures, sounds, or feelings. There are visible changes in our bodies when we think in different ways. We move our eyes in different directions in a systematic way depending on how we are thinking. Neurological studies have shown that eye movement, both laterally and vertically, seems to be associated with activating different parts of the brain. When we visualize something from our past experience, our eyes tend to move up and to our left. When constructing a picture from words or trying to imagine something we have never seen, our eyes move up and to our right. The eyes move across to our left or remembered sounds and across to our right for constructed sounds. When accessing feelings, the eyes will typically go down to our right. When talking to ourselves, the eyes will generally go down left. Most right-handed people have the pattern of eye movement shown in the diagram. They may be reversed for left-handed people. So far, we have talked about three main ways of thinking, in sounds, in pictures, and in feelings. But this is only the first step. If you wanted to describe a picture you have seen, there is a lot of detail you could add. Was it in color or black and white? Was it in a moving film strip or still? Was it far or near? These sorts of distinctions could be made regardless of what is in the picture. Similarly, you could describe a sound as high or low-pitched, near or far, loud or soft. A feeling could be heavy or light, sharp or dull, light or intense. These distinctions are known as submodalities. Here are some of the most common submodality distinctions that people make. Some submodalities are discontinuous or digital, like a light switch on or off. An experience has to be one or the other. An example would be associated or dissociated. A picture cannot be both at the same time. Most submodalities vary continuously as if controlled by a dimmer switch. They form a sort of sliding scale, for example, clarity, brightness, or volume. The most interesting aspect of submodalities is what happens when you change them. Some may be changed and make no difference. Others may be crucial to a particular memory, and changing them changes the whole way we feel about the experience. Typically, the impact and meaning of a memory or thought is more a function of a few critical submodalities than it is of the content. Once an event has happened, it is finished and we can never go back and change it. After that, we are not responding to the event anymore, but to our memory of the event, which can be changed. Try this experiment. Think back to a pleasant experience. Make sure you are associated in the next picture, seeing it as through your own eyes. Experience what it's like. Next, dissociate. Step outside it and view the person who looks and sounds very like you. This will almost certainly change how you feel about the experience. Dissociating from a memory robs it of its emotional force. A pleasant memory will lose its pleasure, an unpleasant one its pain. Understanding, identifying, and learning how to change submodalities form the basis for many of the behavior-changing techniques important to NLP, like to dislike, the swish pattern, the phasphobia model. The sooner you have a solid understanding of the basics of NLP, the sooner you'll be positioned to start using these advanced techniques.